Hey there, welcome back. I'm Schedule One. It's been a while. We missed you. This is episode 10. Wow, we made it 10 episodes.
Double digits, that's pretty cool.
Uh, Going off of we've been doing kind of a kick of obscure substances, and I think we kind of changed it up this time. We're going to do more of I guess it's a more of a known substance.
I'm
What do you think?
excited for it because I feel like this is the classic holy trinity of psychedelics. We have hit Lucy, mushrooms, and now finally mescaline. So yeah,
Yeah.
I definitely say it's one of the more popular ones.
Um, yeah, I mean, it's one of those those recognizable, comes from a plant you can recognize. But really, do you want to start off? Tell us what it is.
All right, yeah. To give a little rundown about what exactly is mescaline. Mescaline is the chemical found within various different kinds of cactus. San Pedro, peyote, Peruvian torch, I think is one.
Hmm.
Do you
I
know
think
of
it's
any
in a
others?
few beans, like a bean family of some
Interesting.
sort,
Did not know
but
that.
not like baked beans or lima beans, but an Aztec Indian bean.
But so essentially, mescaline is the chemical within the cactus that causes you to trip, comparable to, say, how psilocybin is the chemical within mushrooms that cause you to trip. Mescaline is I always have trouble pronouncing this, phenethylamine, I believe. That is, fellow phenethylamines are MDMA, 2CB, 2CE, a lot of the 2C family, actually. It essentially, that essentially just means they're chemically similar in terms of their structure.
Yeah, same
Um,
family.
yeah, the same family. Thank you. What is interesting about mescaline is that it can cause a cross tolerance with LSD and psilocybin magic mushrooms. Just even though they're not in the same, I believe those are tryptamines. Even
Hmm.
though they're not in the same family, there's still a cross tolerance that can be caused from them, which I thought was kind of interesting. Um, Trying to think of mescaline is also one of the more popular entheogens in North America, I'd say. Probably not in the world, but definitely North America. An entheogen is essentially a plant that is used for shamanic, religious,
Hmm.
or spiritual ceremonies. Um, Mescaline was also included into Alexander Shulgin's magical half dozen. And those are six chemical compounds, five of which he discovered, mescaline being the only one he didn't. Those are in his mind, the most important phenethylamine compounds. The other that we mentioned in a previous episode was 2CB, if you happen to remember
Yeah, go back and watch that one. That'll help you.
that. Click refresh a couple times, you know. Um,
Leave a comment. I like.
Share with your friends. Um, so that's pretty much what I have in terms of just what is it. I have a little
Yeah.
bit about the effects if you want to move into that, unless you have more to
Actually,
say.
I have a little bit to say. I think from my research, it was first synthesized in a lab in Germany, and by German scientists, and
Hmm.
they were at the cutting edge before the war.
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
But it was, the drug or mescaline comes from peyote, the San Pedro cactus, what we said earlier, and that's been a big part of Western America culture, and South America as a continent, for thousands upon thousands of years. And mescaline has been a staple in the religious life of these typical Native American tribes, and that goes all the way to thousands of years before BC. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
long, long time ago. So this has been around the block in
Apparently,
terms
it's. Oh, sorry. Continue.
of human interaction. Yeah.
Oh, so I was going to say, somewhat related to that is mescaline is being looked into for its medical effects, specifically for treating depression and alcoholism. And in certain, I think I only read a case about one. I don't want to call them a tribe, but one Native American group in particular,
Hmm.
when they were no longer allowed to take, I guess it'd be peyote for them, in their traditional ceremonial way, the rates of alcoholism rose pretty sharply. Yeah, I didn't write that down, but I read it earlier. I thought that was interesting. I didn't know there were, like, I assumed, but I didn't know there were medical benefits to taking mescaline.
Yeah, I mean, it changes your it changes your like state of mind, like the other psychedelics. I can see how you can almost coerce yourself during a trip to associate negative things with your habits, and learn from your mistakes. Reroute your mind from the typical psychological addiction you have. But I think I want to show some pictures of this cactus just to get you like an idea of what it is. Let me pull up my screen share.
Now, I know I've seen pictures of, I think peyote doesn't really grow super tall. Doesn't peyote just kind of stay short and stunted and round?
Yeah. So this is peyote. Can you see? Fine.
Yeah.
Okay, so these little things are peyote. These little buttons in the ground. These taller ones are the San Pedro cactus.
Okay.
And the way you consume it is you cut these buttons, which are like these things. These are buttons off the top of the cactus to the crown, and you either consume them or you brew them, or it's not very difficult to make to get high off of just the plant. It's not like ayahuasca where you have to do some mixtures and stuff like that. You can just consume it. It's more peyote.
Now, though you can just consume it, a lot of people, at least from my research, people that are really into the shamanic side of it, they do consume the cactus as well. But for most people, that don't want the purge, most people just extract the mescaline, because peyote, if you eat the cactus, mescaline itself can cause intense nausea. But peyote and mescaline, you're almost guaranteed to vomit.
Nausea is a hallmark, signal of mescaline. It's just associated with it, just because it just comes with the trip, a little bit of nausea, depending on if you're eating this cactus, you're gonna have more nausea than if you're taking a pill, which you're still gonna have some nausea, but it's gonna be a little after effect.
Yeah.
I'm gonna turn off this screen share now. Quit looking at my screen. But so yeah, we talked about where mescaline's popular, and you kind of got the idea it's from the cactus. It's been in those Native American tribes. Do you have anything else to say about
that? No, not about what it is.
San Pedro cactus. It's named the San Pedro cactus after Saint Peter, who holds the keys to heaven, which is a very symbolic, comparison. The San Pedro cactus holds the mescaline. The mescaline is your key to the heaven, the doors of perception.
That is really cool. Yeah, I remember you telling me that earlier. That I really like that. I didn't know that. It's a cool piece of mescaline trivia.
But I mean, that's all the information I have on the substance.
All right, so I have a little bit just about the general effects before we move into the actual, I guess, trip reports. So one theme that I saw people online saying that I thought was really interesting, they said they preferred mescaline to the other classic tryptamines, LSD and shrooms, because there was a lack of fear. For a lot of people, and I guess me and Alex are opposites on this thing. For a lot of people, they say LSD has a sinister push to it or a sinister undertone. And though I can't 100% relate with that, I can kind of start to sympathize with mushrooms having a bit of a sinister side to them.
I mean, saying your sinister side to the LSD, I can 100% attest to that. I feel very uneasy on LSD. On mushrooms, it's kind of just more like a sickness almost, but on LSD, it's just like a fucking butterflies in your stomach and holding your breath or something. I can't describe the feeling, but it's fucky.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah. I mean, again, I don't really get the sinister push from LSD. I do kind of understand it from the shrooms, but that was one of the huge positives a lot of people were saying about mescaline is that there's just no fear there. You just feel amazing and pleasant and happy, and
Mm-hmm.
it
More of a
it's
Molly.
yeah, definitely more of a Molly. Trying to think of what else. Oh, so in terms of the headspace that you get with mescaline, for those of you that don't know, headspace essentially just means state of mind. At least that's
Mm-hmm.
how I use the term. It has like the traditional easygoing headspace
Meditative.
of a well, I was going to say phenethylamine, just like,
Mm.
2CB. For example, 2CB is an incredibly easy psychedelic to handle,
Okay.
in my experience. But
Yeah, I can attest to that too.
yeah, but at the same time, while the headspace is as easy as other phenethylamines, you still have that like reflective spiritual mindset that you
Mm-hmm.
do with not so much LSD, but definitely mushrooms. And when you combine those two, it just makes for a fucking lovely trip. Um, also,
Fucking top tier trip.
yeah. Trying to think of what. Oh, and there's just a lot of physical comfort when you take it as well after the nausea passes. At least in my case, once the nausea passed, I just felt comfortable everywhere I was. But that's essentially what little bit I have about its general effects. We can move on to the actual trip if
All
you'd
right.
like to.
So we took this last Sunday. Instead of making an episode, we got high, and
As you
we
do.
we split. I think people say. Actually, let me preference this. We took mescaline hydrochloride, which is an extraction. If you have any anything about the extraction method or anything.
Oh, no, I don't.
So
I
it's
yeah.
just ended up being like white powdery, an extracted form of mescaline.
Mhm.
It was almost like flour. It wasn't like a grainy substance.
Yeah, it was kind
It
of
was
difficult
like
to work with because it was so powdery.
cocaine almost,
Yeah.
baby powder. But we split 400 into 200 and 200 each. So we took 400 apiece.
Milligrams, by the way.
Yeah, 400 milligrams. We took 400 grams apiece. Uh, they say you don't feel anything up to 100 milligrams, and 400 is kind of like a top tier experience, kind of like the above average, I would say.
Mhm. I am curious though what the trip would have been like had we taken all 400 at once.
Yeah.
I'm definitely glad we split it. The reason we split it is I don't know if you said it or not, but we took one pill 45 minutes after the other. And the reason is it really helps with the nausea, which Alex didn't get any of, but I struggle with a little bit for like the first hour and a half.
I mean I get nausea pretty frequently just off of regular things, so I was expecting some nausea, but I fucking powered through it like a champ. I didn't get any nausea at all. We had some ginger tea. I made some ginger tea, and it tasted like ginger tea. But it really calmed my stomach and helped me out a lot. You weren't sipping on your ginger tea like you should have been, and it really upset your stomach.
We were also smoking a little bit of Mary, and that was helping.
Yeah, we were smoking a little bit of Kush and a little bit of Mary and a little bit of hash and a little bit of this and a little bit of that. Just to calm us down for the build up. Ease us into the experience, not make us throw up and ruin our trip and waste that precious hydrochloride.
Yeah, that's what I was really worried about. Apparently, if you throw up within, I don't know, the first 30-ish, 40-ish minutes of taking it, then there's a good chance you waste a lot of what you took. That was my big thing. Like, if my stomach hurt, that's whatever. I just didn't want to waste it.
So we took it, and we waited a little while and just kind of sit around and fuck off. I don't know, we probably watched like a comedy or something on TV.
I think we
Something.
did. Yeah.
But then all of a sudden, it just kind of, you feel your heart kind of kick up a little bit, a little rumbling in your stomach, and all of a sudden it just hits you with this like huge rush of energy to me. I felt like I could get up and just run marathons.
Interesting.
It was like,
When I was looking up trip reports, it seemed to be a split half and half. Some people say you just get bursts of energy, and some people say they get couch locked. And I would say I was in the couch lock group. I really just wanted to melt into the chair.
I know you wanted to just like melt to the chair, but I was like, nah, we gotta go out and experience this. And after, I mean, we waited a while. We probably waited like 2.5 hours after we took it to finally go out and walk off. But we left to go walk around UWF campus, like our traditional psychedelic walks.
Before we get to the campus, I would like to say the visual effects started to happen while we were still in my apartment,
Oh
and
yeah,
the two big ones I remember. The first is kind of difficult to describe. I got this rainbow vision, but it wasn't like it literally looked like someone covered everything I was looking at in rainbow. It
yeah.
looked like someone, I don't know, metaphorically covered everything in rainbow. Like I could see rainbow colors, but I could more pick up on the idea of them. I guess would be a better way to describe it.
To me,
Um,
when I was laying in your bed, it looked like there was hidden prisms like all over the room, and there were just tiny like refractals of rainbows everywhere. Like everywhere there was light, there was just a rainbow spectrum.
okay, yeah, that makes sense.
It was like I never experienced anything like that where it would like just show rainbows all over the place. I've more experience like morphing and changing into something else than just seeing new colors everywhere.
Yeah. I I agree definitely. I also though well I don't know if you got this specifically, but um for the first I don't know hour and a half when the visuals really started to happen, I got a lot of varying shades of gold at everything I looked at. It would be somewhere on a gradient between bright gold and dark deep gold. Which was really nice. That kind of helped add to like the desert, the I guess like the desert, Middle Eastern, Arabic, South American, Aztec theme
Yeah,
that the trip was
desert
having.
theme.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I don't remember a whole lot of the hallucinations on the come up. I remember I would get these like light color bleeding, what I would call it,
Hmm.
which would mean like I would see like a color around something and I'd put it in its general location and the color would transform from one color to another, one object to another object. So if I had like a brown towel and I laid it on some kind of reddish dirt, the towel would turn kind of red as well.
Hmm.
Um, and, that kind of just would spread. Everything would just kind of morph together.
Right.
Um, but do you have any more like in the before we left to like walk off?
Not really. We didn't spend in my memory. We only spent like probably 2 hours total in the apartment after we took the first pill. So it took kind of a little bit to kick in. So I feel like we did experience most of the visuals outside.
Yeah, so when we went to walk, I remember it was it's always kind of weird walking on psychedelics, but I remember I was having trouble, every now and then remembering like and keeping my balance.
Mm,
I had more of a drunkenness than I would on normal psychedelics. I don't know.
interesting.
I take that back. Mushrooms fucked me up real hard. I couldn't walk very well on mushrooms. So I take that back. It was more of a I would say a drunkenness on a scale of 1 to 10. It was like a 5. Every now and then I'd be like, "Whoa, I hope I don't fall over." But I mean, it wasn't a pain to walk at all. It was very enjoyable.
I know. I was. I don't remember any kind of problems with me walking. I know I was staring down at the grass in front of me. One of the most interesting visuals I got from the trip was the different blades of grass. They would come together and make various 3D shapes. And after they would make these shapes, the shapes would start jumping around, and they would keep hopping in front of me, and they would stay between like 3 and 7 feet in front of me. But every time I caught up to one, it would just like lean back and then just fling itself forward another 4 or 5 feet, and then all these shapes just kind of kept doing that until we finally got into the thick woods.
Yeah, we went through the nature trail, and we hopped off and kind of got like to a point we hopped off at one point, and we were like, "Nah, we don't want to chill here because it had been wet the night before."
Yeah, I didn't even think about it, but it rained, so the mosquitoes were out. It had kind of a claustrophobic feel. There's like this thin wooden walkway that goes through the nature preserve.
We just kind of looked both ways and crawled through the gap.
Yeah, at one point we hopped off the wooden path, and we just went into the woods, and it was just more wet. And that's all that was there. So
we doubled back, and we kind of reached this power line tree ridge area. It wasn't like huge power lines; they were just short little, conductors. And it was the tree ridge where the forest split in half. There was trees on one side, trees on this side, but you could walk pleasantly through this grass area. And there was a lot of really red clay.
Before we get to the clay, just to give a better idea about the new area we're in, the entire time we've been walking through the nature trail, the nature preserve, it's been very closed, very dark, and a little wet. But we finally walked through the preserve, and there was this massive opening. And in this opening, there, like Alex said earlier, there's like a forest behind you where you walked out of. Then you probably have 20 feet of just power lines and sand, and then you have another cluster of trees, another massive cluster of trees. And when you look left and right, just probably for a solid half mile, it's just sand, sand and clay.
So you kind of get this. I was getting this desert feel from it, which I enjoyed. Really. The sun was like ecstasy on Mescaline. Like, it was just pure enjoyment, just having the sun shine on you to me.
That's what was so weird. I know when we were walking, at one point I crouched down on the sand, and I was thinking about how hot I was, but I was also thinking about how much I was enjoying how hot I was. It's definitely something, like, if I had to die in the desert, I'd want to take a shitload of mescaline first, because that'd be a fantastic way to go. Like, you love the heat. You love just roasting. It's weird. You just
want to fucking just roast. I don't know. I read somewhere that mescaline is produced, the chemical is produced by the cactus, similar to how animals produce cortisol when they're stressed. It's produced when the cactus is stressed. I don't know if it has the same effects, but that's an interesting way to think about it.
Yeah.
But when we get to this opening, we kind of lay down my towel I brought along, and Kirk chills on it. But I take off my shorts my pants I had underneath. I had shorts underneath, but no, I got fully nude and
started doing cartwheels in the sand.
Yeah, it was getting wild, and I mean, I was dressed really comfortable, and I just took my shoes off and just wanted to walk in the sand, in the clay, and the red in the clay was just really, really shining. It was like there were mirrors on these red particles, and then from the red you got this this blue. Also, it was like a turquoise, but it was it was coming from these darker tones. I was definitely hallucinating it because I knew these colors were brown and just dull, but I was seeing the brightest shades in this clay. And there was a little bit of water over there, which was cool too, just to look at. I didn't want to fuck with it to get ringworm or something.
that was actually a good call.
The mindset, or you have something to say?
I was actually going in that same direction. While we were there, to give you an idea of the headspace that I was specifically feeling, I felt like I was a calm child. I felt like I still had all of this wonder at this whole new world that opened up to me, and everything was just fascinating to look at. Not so much to think about like it is on LSD, but it was just cool to look at things and to appreciate how they looked.
It was more of an observation than an analyzation.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. But at the same time, I was also incredibly calm. So I was just amazed by everything I was looking at, but in a very relaxed, laid back kind of way.
I really attest to that childlike sense of creativity. I'd always listened to these
Psychonauts?
psychonauts talk about the childlike creativity, and I never got that feel. But on this mescaline, I legitimately felt like I was like 6 years old. Like I was having like a flashback to how my younger self would experience things. Like I would
That's really interesting.
I would lose thought of anything but what was happening, and I was just enjoying everything. It was very unique. I was just transported back into a previous time.
I know. Damn, you raised a good point. I wanted to comment on it. Completely forgot. But I know one of the things that was because visually that was really cool with mescaline as well is when I was looking at sand, I noticed at some point in some parts it was almost hard to look at because I don't know what was in the sand, but certain grains were glowing harshly. It was a very strong, shiny brightness that was coming from them. It looked like someone crushed diamonds into the sand. And I remember picking up the sand and just looking at it and being amazed because it almost looked like it was generating its own light. It was so bright and glowing.
I would say I meant to say something else when you were talking about the mindset. I was getting this deep thinking, and it wasn't thinking about anything really. It was just like thinking about nothing, just lost in a trance of just like just thinking about what was going on, but I couldn't comprehend anything of it. It was overwhelming at times in terms of just I'm sitting there like I'm puzzled, but absolutely like not a thing is making sense in my mind or like dots are connecting. It's just I'm sitting there stupefied, and I would say that was like how I felt a lot of times, just stupid. I felt like I was just stupid most of the time.
I know. So the trip, it was going well while we were walking to campus and while we were in the trail, but I feel like it really revealed itself as to what kind of drug mescaline is once we got to this like sandy, hot area. I know in terms of the mindset, it makes you, a lot of people take mescaline for meditation because it just puts you in this perfect state of zen. Everything is just correct. You're not thinking about anything. You're not doing anything. You're just existing in the moment. And it was incredible to experience that. I remember once I entered that state, I felt like nature accepted me. I finally attuned my brain frequency to the right wave to stop being the other and to become a part of the environment. I know frequently when we were walking around, we would stop and I would have different bugs that would land on me or crawl on me. And normally, I'm not a spaz, but if I see like an ant on my leg, I'm gonna try and kill it or fling it off.
I can knock it off. I mean, that's just a general person. You knock off the things carrying on you.
Yeah, it's because instinct to not want insects on you. And it was weird that I would notice, I wouldn't even feel them crawling on me, but I would look down and I'd see a few ants on my feet or something, and I just kind of gently swipe them off and then continue on my way.
I think I ended up like letting a caterpillar like crawl up my finger one time, like during the trip, and I would fucking never in my life let it like do that. I feel cringe about it in this moment.
Yeah, that I wouldn't have let that happen, or I wouldn't sober anyway. But I know one of the things that I kept bringing up during this trip is it made me feel like just an animal. I felt like I was a docile cow. If you ever look at an animal while it's not eating or fighting or fucking and it's just sitting there existing, I've always wondered what is going through their head. And I feel like on that trip, I got a little taste of what it was like to be an animal, to just let your brain
have that default just coast mode.
Yeah. To have like that, I'm just gonna sit here and wait until it's time for me to do something mode. That fuck
Yeah,
it.
that fuck it, I'll just wait. Um, I remember my depth perception being a little off too. I remember like this dude walked out of the gap between the forest, and I just like cartoon like looked at him walk towards us a little ways. Like he would keep walking, but in my vision it looked like he was just a long ways off. In reality, he was maybe like 50 feet, but it looked like he was like 200 yards away, just slowly like cinematically walking towards us in a camera shot.
I know my spatial perception was definitely off. That was one of the bigger things I noticed. It was really difficult for me to estimate distances or to understand. Well, yeah, just estimate distances. It was hard for me to get that a tree could exist as far away as these trees were, for
Yeah,
example.
and time was just not a thing. I mean, it was just how long have we been here? I don't know, like 2-3 hours. Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Uh,
there were. I kind of wish. I kind of want to start like putting on or wearing GoPro head mounts and go when I trip because I'm curious as to like I feel like there were points where we probably just stared at the ground or stared at the sky for 20 to 50 minutes without saying a word and then just moving on and doing the next thing.
I had a lot of trouble, like especially at like the peak of this trip when we're in this like sandy area. I had a lot of trouble communicating and talking,
Hmm.
but I felt like at the same time we were like on the same wavelength in a sense, you know. Like I
You
could
know,
put out a few words and you could like interpret what I was feeling at the same time.
it was weird. I'm actually glad you brought that up. I completely forgot about that. It was weird. Maybe I was in such a state of relaxation and sedation, it was difficult to talk, but I would want to say something, run through the beginning part of that sentence in my mind, think, fuck it, that's too much work, and then just stay silent. That's how a lot of that's just how a lot of my attempts at speaking went for several hours. It was just, I don't know, it was difficult for me. I didn't feel like communicating, even though I wanted
Yeah.
to. I don't know, I didn't have the energy to dredge up the words.
The feeling I got a lot, like I felt like it. I felt very. I don't know if I interpreted this or I projected this feeling, just because I understood that the mescaline was more of a Native American ritualistic, kind
Oh
of
yeah,
drug,
yeah.
and I definitely got into like a religious kind of like primordial experience. Like I felt like if we like had loincloths on and walked in the desert, like that would have been perfectly normal at this moment.
Hmm.
Like it felt like I just wanted to paint my face with turquoise and red and yellow and earth tones and just like speak ritualistic chants of the Aztec god and rip out a heart of some soul captured in our war and roll him down the steps. I mean, it was very to your roots, the default like uh,
Tribal state.
tribal, humans without culture. I guess
I
not without culture, without society,
Yeah. Without the mega societies that we have now.
without the everyday like the unspoken rules,
Oh yeah, that's it. The
the
unspoken social
social
norms.
standards and stuff like that. Like take everything back and get rid of the laws and the rules and everything. And that's just how I felt.
I don't know what my state of ego was during the quote unquote desert part. I don't know if you asked me about me, if I would have
Mhm.
remembered, but at that moment, I felt like I no longer was an American in the year 2016.
Yeah.
I felt like I was just a tribesman centuries ago. And it was just completely, I don't know. It was just completely normal to be experiencing this heat, and I don't know. It was interesting. I felt like I belonged to a different culture.
In the show Hell on Wheels, there's this indigenous, Native American group, and it goes through this time where the chief's son he's gonna have an experience or see a vision for the tribe. They decided this is what he's got to do, and so they like put nails through his nipples and make him lean back and face the sun for like all day long.
Damn.
And I felt like I just wanted to like grab 2 handfuls of sand and just fucking have them fall through my fingers and stare at the sun and wait for the sun god to tell me what to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That completely makes sense. It's weird how, I guess, just, I don't know how much the desert speaks to you and the heat speaks to you. It's super, super interesting. Before we started talking about the trip, I meant to preface that the way the trip went for me is it was kind of in 2 phases. The first being pre and mid peak. And during this phase, I felt like, in terms of my body high, I felt like I had taken natural Molly. I that's kind of a weird explanation, but imagine the synthesized Molly, MDMA, that we all know and love. Imagine that being the perfected super scientific form. I felt like I found a Molly tree just growing in the woods, and I picked a Molly fruit and I started eating it, and that's what I was feeling. I felt this
was feeling like it was like nature's LSD to me. It was like
that's what a lot of people call it.
I had eaten the cactus and I was experiencing the nature's LSD, and it along with nature, it had, a body feel to it instead of just, a synthesized, mind high. It was very intense on your body and your mind.
So do you really remember what happened after we decided to leave the desert area?
Yeah, I do. I remember quite a bit. After we leave this area, we decide to, we're feeling fucking amazing because of the sun, and we go and lay on a hillside, outside your math building, and just in the grass.
I forgot about that.
Just the sunbathe, and I remember closing my eyes and having the most intense closed eye hallucinations I've ever had. Just like swirling colors and swirling images and just fucking cartoons and silhouettes and just the most deep closed-eyed hallucinations. And I usually don't get closed-eyed hallucinations, but I was getting them really, really strongly.
Interesting. I don't think when we were laying on that hill, I closed my eyes. I think I just stared into the sky, and it was a similar effect. Eyes. Damn, I might have used it as a pillow.
Oh,
I don't know though.
I think we had to leave because you didn't bring your shades.
Yeah, it was just getting really, really bright.
And then we walked over to the dock, down the path through which we recorded the acid clips, and that was nice. I don't remember like anything outstanding, but when we got to the dock is like, it's solid white, kind of off-colored white. And it felt like I was standing, and it's also like, it's fucked up in some places, like the boards are distorted, and so it kind of like makes you hallucinate, like it's already fucked up, and especially on drugs, it makes you like hallucinate different depth perception of this dock. And to me, it was like, it felt like I was standing on this like pure white sand, and I was just, the sun was coming down and reflecting off this white surface, and it felt really, really great. I remember, having just the utter feel of bliss in this trip, in terms of like body high enjoyment. It wasn't like a shroom, like really euphoria where it was like in your mind and you're laughing and whatnot. It was just feeling incredible for the most part. Do you remember anything out like on the dock?
Specifically, not like in terms of feeling, but in terms of, again, spatial perception. I remember when we were walking on the dock. The dock is probably 6-7 feet wide. That's over 2 meters for our friends across the pond. When I would walk in the middle of it because I was worried about falling in the water. But while I was walking, the dock at the same time looked massive and small. I would look to my left and right and just feel like I had tons of feet to just play around and fuck off without falling in the water. But again, unexplainably at the same time, I felt like if I wasn't walking down the middle, then I would accidentally just slip off and fall in. That was really weird. Like, I've never felt that I was on a massive and small thing at the same time.
I remember some of like the vegetation on the sides of the dock, you know, where the earth meets the water, you know, where that green vegetation is.
Oh, yeah.
I remember it kind of feeling very like alien to me, kind of foreign. Like I felt like I was on another world. Just the greenery, it made me feel like I was somewhere else.
Interesting.
But we walked back up to like these tables, and I pulled out some paint that I brought with me, and we painted. That was fun. Like, I mean, mixing the colors and shit. Like, I don't feel like it was definitely an interesting experience with the hallucinating part, but it wasn't.
Sorry, you cut out for the last part of that sentence. I heard interesting experience.
It was an interesting experience, but it wasn't like profound.
Yeah. So I would be personally, by the time we got to the dock, I'd say phase 1 of the trip has ended and phase 2 started. Phase 2 I would describe as just painkillers. I felt like for several hours, like 6 to 8 hours, I felt like I had recently taken some strong painkillers, and I just had this really pleasant just body and mind sedation. And even though I wasn't getting any visuals anymore, and I didn't have this just bursting euphoria like I do with MDMA, I just felt fantastic, amazing, you know, like how opiates make you feel.
I would compare, like, how I would describe the feeling of the trip is the first, you know, like 3, 4, or 5 hours is like MDMA. And then it just switches into morphine, and it just... That's what I compared it to, morphine, because I've had, you know, experience what I've had, amounts of morphine in the hospital, and it just like rocks you, and it just puts you in a relaxed mood. And that's exactly what it felt like after imagine like the triangle as we're heading up to the peak. As soon as you turn that down turn, it just turned off the pump up effects and was just chill.
Yeah, I didn't expect that at all. In all my research with mescaline, I've never had anyone talk about the just intense relaxation. Maybe we were just kind of starting to get exhausted, and since we were feeling so great, we interpreted exhaustion as relaxation.
Yeah, because we had walked, like, by the end of this walk, we had walked like 3 miles.
Yeah, a solid amount. Plus, I mean, even though we loved it, we were in the beaming sun all day. Except for when we were in the thick forest.
Before I say that, the morphine side, at points on the dock, I would get to where it was like I just had to like crouch down and like just like almost catch my breath. I wasn't winded. I just had to like crouch down and like put my hands on my knees and be like, whoa, you know. It was just something I had. I don't know. I was just in utter like opiate mode here. Like I was just. After we leave the dock, we didn't chill there very long. We just kind of left and painted, and then we fucked off, and we went to like the cliffside. And I remember we like sat next to a tree, like on this cliffside, you know, in the shade, just to cool off.
Yeah, that was really nice. I forgot about that. I know one of the things we were talking about, and something I think I'll definitely try here in a couple months. This drug is so perfect for taking in just a hot, dry environment. I am really curious to see what it would be like to take it and then go somewhere swampy or go somewhere forested or very specifically cold. I really want to try taking it in the winter and see what that's like.
I don't know. I feel like my preferred destination is like the beach.
Oh yeah, I definitely want to take this at the beach.
Yeah, when we got to the cliffside, or we got to the cliff edge, and we just sat down by these trees, I remember, you know, getting in a more meditative mood and just thinking. And I was able to finally think. And I started thinking, and I was like, wait, what is my name? And I had forgotten my name. I had forgotten who I was. I was like, who am I right now? And I was totally at an ego like loss. It wasn't like a painful crushing like a death. It was just I just forgot. I mean, I had other things to focus on other than myself, and I couldn't remember who I was.
I wish I tried to think about who I was. I just remember after we left the dock, I just entered for several hours, as I mentioned earlier, this powerful state of Zen. I guess I knew I was alive, but I feel like for most of the trip, I just forgot I was a living being. For a while, I just felt like I was an existing consciousness experiencing all of this new stuff around me.
After that, we walked back to the apartment, and I mean, really, we just stone cold chilled the whole time.
Yeah, it
We
was.
listened to music. It was just I could have just sat in like a bungee chair and just stayed there for till the trip was over.
hmm I know specifically that's what I did. As soon as we walked in, I got on the love seat, propped my feet up, and then just stayed put for like 4 or 5 hours.
No, I took a shower when we got back, dude. It was top. It was like an amazing shower. Uh, I remember taking a shower on acid that one time, and it wasn't that great. But like this mescaline shower was really really nice.
That's interesting. Yeah, I didn't shower on it, but I washed my hair on acid. That was kind of nice, but it was just mostly, I don't know, I was focusing too much on my hair. I wasn't really enjoying the trip, but yeah, I didn't think to take a shower on mescaline. But I know my roommate, he actually took MDMA that day, and he was, I mean, it is difficult to beat how music sounds on MDMA. So we have this, I think it's a 12-inch sub in the living room, and he hooked up some music to that and was playing it. And sadly, I mean, it sounded good, but I got almost zero musical enhancement from. I guess it was because we were very late in the trip. I would have loved to have thought about it and listened to
Yeah.
music earlier, but at this point, music sounded pretty normal. I would say just regular weed alters music more than the music was being altered at this point in the trip.
Yeah, I mean, it really wasn't anything special. It was normal stuff. Music terms. It
Mhm.
sounded nice. I mean, I liked the music, but at the same time, I was on fucking morphine. So I could have fucking liked anything. I mean, you play. Uh, we got there and we started talking about the trip, and I don't remember if you remember this, but I have the perfect like visual representation of what a mescaline trip is like, and you've probably seen it before. I'm gonna screen share here, but shit, I go to chat. The mescaline experience is just like the fucking commercial of the girl melting on the couch. That is the substance she is on right here. This is mescaline. She is on her come down, but she looks like she's having a bad time, but she's having a fucking great time.
You can't imagine how much she's loving that right now.
Her friend Maria's like, "What's up with you?" And she's like, "I'm fucking stoned."
Yeah,
But yeah, I
that is
mean,
actually a pretty good representation for it.
oop, I almost hit stop broadcast. But yeah, I mean, that's all I really had prepared, or what I wanted to say about the substance.
Me too, but to tack on before we close, I meant to bring this up earlier, but I completely forgot. Um, Part of why I really like mescaline and why it was such a unique and refreshing experience is this isn't my original thoughts. I found this online, but mescaline is a very outward psychedelic. It has you looking to your environment, and it has you becoming one with your environment,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed starkly opposite to mushrooms and
Mushrooms.
DMT, which are incredibly insular. You look inward and within yourself. But I think that's why, like, I've never had anything that brought me outside of myself like mescaline did. Um, Overall, it was a fucking top tier experience. I would recommend it to almost everyone, unless you just have a weak stomach.
Yeah.
I don't let anything keep you from trying this drug. If you're gonna try, Put it in your top 3. You got to try it. It's fantastic.
It's a must do experience for a psychonaut, I would say.
I'm back and forth on whether or not it's my I put it in my favorite. Mescaline and Mescalito and Lucy are fighting it out. I'm gonna need to trip a few more times before I can come to a final conclusion. But as much as I love LSD, this mescaline was so fantastic. It's really rivaling that top spot.
I would say mescaline. It's so hard to compare psychedelics. Mescaline is my favorite drug. I'm just gonna leave it at that. It's the most enjoyable experience I had this last trip. Was the most enjoyable.
Can you repeat that? You cut out. You
cut out right there too. But can you hear me now? I'm just gonna go on, but.
Oh, I'm sorry. You cut out for like 8 seconds there.
You cut out for like 30 seconds there.
Damn. Would you be willing to repeat that?
Yeah.
Last thing I heard was most enjoyable experience I had.
Yeah, I mean, this mescaline trip was the most enjoyable psychedelic experience I've ever had. Minus like one other experience. I remember we took maybe 2 grams of shrooms, and I laughed so hard my stomach hurt. But this was like the second and most enjoyable experience I've ever had. And I say mescaline is probably my favorite drug. You know, shrooms can have that effect, and they can steal that spot depending on the dosage. But this mescaline was amazing.
Yeah, I
10 out of 10.
Yeah, no other way to put it. It really made me want to experiment more with the phenethylamines or the phenethylamines, whichever one, because the only real chemical logical comparison I have to mescaline is 2CB. And though I enjoy 2CB, it doesn't hold a fucking candle to mescaline.
Yeah, not a fucking candle. I mean, 2CB is a few hours, or was it 5 hours or something like that?
I think it was like 5 or 6 hours.
But I mean, it was like a little, little trip. This was like a fucking experience. This is very associated with religious experiences and profound experiences, and it was definitely that. It lived up to what I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, I'd say 2CB was a good time. It's a happy memory, and I really enjoyed my trips. But mescaline, this is probably top 10, maybe top 5 I'd say top 10 greatest experiences in my life. It was fantastic. I can't really overstate it enough.
Mm-hmm.
I think mostly why I'm kind of adamant about it is, though people are familiar with psychedelics, I feel like this fantastic little chemical that has more than enough earned its spot in Shulgin's magical half dozen. I feel like it's because it's not known about, and that blows my mind. I enjoy mushrooms. I enjoy LSD. I feel like people at least know they exist, but mescaline, I guess, get raised eyebrows. I have to say cactus drugs for people to know what I'm talking about.
It's like, I feel like I could be a fucking advocate for mescaline. It was so great. I mean, people must learn about this. They must take this substance. But no, I'm just kidding. It probably isn't for everybody.
Probably not. See, that's before I just start handing out mescaline pills to people, I want to try it a few more times to maybe that was just the stars aligned for that trip. Maybe that was just such a perfect trip, and that was a rare thing that a trip was that good. But I'd like to think mescaline's just gonna stay like that.
If it wasn't so, if you didn't have to take so much, and it didn't cost so much a gram, I mean, I'd definitely be taking it, once a month, every 2 weeks or something like that.
I'd probably take it every 2 weeks.
Yeah, I would keep it in my staple of just drugs that you take, and after you come back, you just feel like it was just a vacation. And you feel like you've reinvented yourself. You come back and you've really, you've enjoyed what's happened and you feel, happy for your experience, but you're also a different person.
I know I've probably mentioned this before. Part of what is so fantastic about the psychedelic experience is that it restarts your mind. It gives you a break. It deletes the trash. It removes the spam. It gives you a fresh start. With this mescaline, I feel like it didn't only restart my mind. It sent it to a fucking vacation. Like, my brain got massaged. It got taken care of. It got pampered.
A little hand job, a happy ending.
The whole nine. I felt really just relaxed and great. I didn't have a problem falling asleep that night. When I take one tab of LSD, I'm usually still awake 17 hours later. With this, yeah. I was able to drift off and blissfully and fantastically.
Mm-hmm. It was enjoyable through 99% of the experience to me. I mean, to you, it probably been 95% because you were sick a little bit. But after you kick that, I mean, there's got to be a little give and pull with this drug. Like, it can't be all that great. Something's got to be up, Something's got to, give you a little nausea. It can't be all amazing.
Would you like to try and take mescaline for that river trip we've been talking about, going on a river, or is that too long to?
I feel like it's too long. In that case, I just want to be high for like 4 or 5 hours.
Okay, that's fair enough.
Rather than being high, I mean, we were high pretty much like through that night. I mean,
yeah, I wasn't still feeling obviously like the phase 1 effects, but I was still under the influence of a substance for I felt like nearly 18 hours.
Yeah, I remember you said you were feeling sober, and then we were like, let's go get pizza. And like on the drive back, you were like, maybe I shouldn't have drove.
Oh, I was just making a joke to when Bro did the same thing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I remember that now.
But yeah, that's our mescaline experience. And if anything, I hope this at least has you interested in this beautiful, beautiful chemical.
We smoked some DMT that weekend, but I guess we can save it for another ep.
Oh yeah, that's right. Would you want to I mean, DMT is it's a fucking 7-minute trip. Would you want to tack that onto this?
Do you remember your experience right there?
Nothing out of the ordinary happened. It was, I mean, you definitely have the more interesting experience. I mean, the room that I'm in, the colors changed, things were morphing and moving, different things, sizes changed, walls became elongated, pretty standard DMT stuff, at least in my experience. I guess I didn't take as much as I thought I did.
Yeah, this DMT experience was like very, very different for me. I decided we always take DMT, we always smoke it at night and in your room, but I wanted to take it like in the afternoon, during the day.
Mm-hmm.
And so you load me up full of a vape, and we go outside, and I'm chilling in this this lawn chair, this travel chair, and I hit it, and more than usual, it's like it tastes really bad. It was tasting worse and worse with each hit, and I did 4 fucking hits. Like, I did not give up on that bitch, and by the fourth hit, I felt like I was going to throw up, but I had lost the perception of throwing up and like all that in my mind, and so I just like ate it. Like I just swallowed that bitch.
I actually did forget about that. I don't know what the fuck was up with this round of DMT, but it was harsh. It was some strong vapor.
When it hit me, it was like a fucking like roundhouse kick to the stomach. This was the most uncomfortable DMT experience I've ever had.
Would you say, except for salvia, most uncomfortable psychedelic experience you've had?
The salvia was creepy. This was powerful. This was like
okay.
This was like sitting in front of a 60-foot speaker and just having it blow me away.
Okay.
I remember trying to open my eyes, and I couldn't see anything. I was just seeing like lava lamp, various blue, yellow, and red globs just floating around my vision. Like I couldn't, I couldn't. I would open my eyes to try to see, but I'd get like a few little pictures, and then it just fucking lava lamp, and it was just, not a great experience. It felt like an elephant was just sitting on my chest, and
If I
eventually,
had to guess, I'm sure like I guess the vapor was just super harsh for whatever reason from the pen, and it was probably irritating your lungs or hurting your chest. And actually, weren't you complaining about feeling like you couldn't breathe for a while?
I don't know. I can't remember that.
Okay,
I
fair enough.
usually on DMT there's this come down where it's like a calming, psychedelic. You have a little bit of psychedelic visuals and you're kind of calm
You're
and you're just
slowly parachuting back into your body.
yeah. I got I mean I was getting visuals like I saw myself as like I had these like gerbil hands and this like gerbil legs and shit. Like it didn't. My arms didn't look like arms; they were just deformed to me, and
Mm.
it kind of made me uncomfortable. But I eventually I had to stand up, and I said I can't stand it anymore out here. Like we had to go inside, and I just like I walked to your bed and just throw myself on it, and just try to like ease this uneasy feeling away.
Yeah,
Um,
that's interesting. I wonder why you're tripping it up like that.
I don't know, man. Like I got this when I failed to mention this when I was hallucinating during the DMT, like during the DMT trip part. I was seeing the lava lamp, but I was seeing this art, and it was like very basic, like caveman painting art,
Hmm.
and it was something like it looked like a caveman would have painted, a caveman with a little bit of artistic creativity.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was very primordial, very like early dawn of man kind of art, and I mean, it didn't set me off right. It just set me off wrong, and I just kind of rolled around and grunted and sighed until it fucking left me, and I was like, whew, maybe I shouldn't smoke that DMT outside.
Do you think that could have been the problem with it? Like,
I don't think I can handle DMT outside anymore. Like, I feel like that was a bad idea.
maybe that's so I would have never thought that that would have been a bad idea. Maybe since DMT is so powerful and it pulls you, well, I don't want to say within yourself, but I don't know, maybe since it's so strong, the openness of being outside, like that's goes way too much to handle.
It was like my vision, the light was like just blinding me. I don't know, it needed to be dim.
That's interesting, but yeah, I mean that was essentially our DMT experience that we had as well.
Yeah.
Oh, did you want to talk about your mini acid trip while we're just going through short trips?
Uh, okay, so I took you had been microdosing a little bit,
Hmm.
and you were cutting up some tabs, and you fucked up at one point, and you
Well,
gave me these.
the guy that I get my LSD from, he usually has very well perforated tabs, and they usually tear off easily. But this batch, I don't know, not as many perforations, I guess. And before I started using scissors to cut it apart, I was still trying to use my fingers, and I guess I ripped a tab. I don't want to say cleanly in half, but it was pretty much in half. It wasn't enough for a full trip, but you could definitely get a little something, something.
I felt like it was roughly 2/3 the size of a hit.
Okay. Yeah, so that
So
put you at about 80 mics.
yeah, it was probably about 80 mics. And I hadn't been storing it that great. I just had like I to bring it to my house. I had it just kind of in the bottom of my mason jar. So it may have had some chemical decomposition or fuck ups
Hmm.
going on there. But I took it, and I mean, it felt like it just cranked my heart up. Like plus 30 beats a minute. I felt like I
Hmm.
went from 100 to 130, and I was just boom, 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 boom. But I mean, I checked my pulse twice during the trip, and I was at fucking like 72. Like I was at resting.
Wow.
like a complete rest. 72 is pretty low for a beat per minute. I think usually most people fall in between 60 and 80 at resting, but I just felt like I was wired to the max. Like I had from somebody fucking strapped me up with some Adderall in my water. I was just like couldn't slow down, couldn't stop. I couldn't relax. Is the thing, and I just had to, I had to be doing something. And so I break out my paints and stuff, and I start, doing a little like self-portrait in the glass, just painting myself because I look really fucking weird on LSD. And that was a good time. The colors mixing, it was fun. I remember kind of just like I got this uncontrollable shaking. I just, like I had like mild
Parkinson's?
I had like a mild Parkinson's. Just kind of like a chill run down my spine every now and then, where I just, shake my paintbrush. Like I couldn't really hold, steady. It was a disorienting experience disorienting compared to, other drugs. LSD is very clear, but it had some, some negative,
I know that's
effects.
pretty common with me. If I guess if I'm not actively moving around, parts of my body will shake back and forth as well. I personally think it's just LSD is a fucking stimulant. I think it's just pumping certain parts of my body with more energy than others, and the only way to release it is to just shake for a little bit. That might be me being willfully stupid, but it's just like my leg or my hands for 2 to 4 seconds, and then it's back to normal.
The hallmark of this LSD trip, and the what I can describe it, what stood out from other trips is that the feeling I got during the trip was very, very uneasy. Like imagine right before you get up, you're the next person to present in a project in the classroom, or you're the next person to give a speech or something like that. Like you're on deck and the butterflies are in your stomach, and you just kind of have this like, it's almost a psychedelic feeling in itself, those psychedelic feelings you get in real life, in terms of just uneasiness and pump upness, and those feelings where you just kind of feel extraordinary. But this whole trip, for 8 hours, I just had these butterflies in my stomach, and it was just I just wanted it to end, it was fucking with me, right? It was fucky. At one point, I'm like, I just need to calm down. I just need to fucking relax, get my shit together. And I pop a Benadryl, right? And I'm not thinking it's gonna do much, but like it completely just tones me out. Like I just lay in bed, relax, and I fucking take a nap on LSD. I have never fallen asleep on acid. I didn't know it was possible. And I took a nap on acid. That was pretty nice. It was like I would take a short 20-minute nap every now and then. Like I'd take a 20-minute nap, wake up and lay there for a few minutes, and then I fall back asleep and then wake up, and then it was only 2 hours, but I felt like I rested enough to where I was coming down.
That's interesting. I'm surprised just a lonely Benadryl was able to tone down acid.
Smoking weed on acid has none effect. So I was shocked. A little bit of Benadryl would make you fall asleep.
Yeah, that's definitely surprising. But now to actually end the episode after those little tangents. In closing, do mescaline. I don't care what you have to do. San Pedro cactus is legal to buy. Just buy it and extract it yourself if you have to. But try this drug.
Fucking cut it up and eat it if you have to.
But yeah, thank you. This has been a very special episode. Double digits. It's mescaline. It was a good episode.
Yeah, good episode. Thanks for watching, everybody. Tune in next time where we talk about
Probably
taking,
2 CE.
yeah, something like that. Maybe we'll do like a legal drug episode sometime where we'll eat drink 3 bottles of DXM apiece. All right, thanks for watching.